Good evening. This is Wilbert Cook at a Hand Up Recovery Homes weekly show. We've changed to Monday night this year. We're kicking it off on a Monday night, 5:30 p.m. Stay tuned. We talk about how to help people recover from alcoholism, substance abuse primarily, but we also help try to utilize that platform and other best practices to try to help reduce the violence in these communities. A lot of the violence is surrounding the drug addiction as well as the selling of drugs. So between those two major issues, illegal drug selling and the fact that people are addicted and out there selling drugs, chasing drugs, and willing to steal, kill, and murder for drugs becomes an issue that perpetuates more violence. So to help stem both things, we're trying to deal with that. But there's a hidden danger lurking in many individuals, even some of our best individuals, called mental health problems, mental illnesses that have long since been stigmatized. We're trying to address that because what comes along oftentimes with substance abuse is mental illnesses, either created during the use of substance and or existing prior to and help contributing to the addiction. And once people get off drugs, oftentimes for various periods of time, they end up on mental health drugs. And often it's just as hard or harder to detox them from mental health drugs. But those who have successfully detoxed from street drugs and pharmaceutical drugs that cause serious substance abuse misuse, they say now, use and misuse disorder, use and abuse disorder, they keep changing things. But so addiction, not the big word now, substance use and abuse disorder or substance use abuse disorder, or however they want to say it, but they say it. And it's clinical terms for how we deal with that. But also it has been long recognized in the field of addiction and now being recognized in the rest of society that what comes along oftentimes precedes and or develops is mental health issues. So what you have now is many people have gone back to enhance their skill sets in helping deal with substance abuse disorder, and they've also got what they call MESA certifications, meaning they can help deal, assess, and help work with those who have mental illnesses. So we have a lot that has to be unpacked to try to enhance the chance for people's success in recovery and to help more than that, help them become successful citizens, living legitimate lives and or going back to legitimate lives. Because unfortunately, we're in a period of time which happens every few years but has been exacerbated this last year with the purging of government, the purging of grants for community organizations to help in various poor communities, urban areas, and Black and brown communities across America. There's been a hold on a lot of federal grants that help a lot of people, thousands of people in this city cannot receive services they had become accustomed to. Thousands more need services that are not available. And then there's thousands that won't get help that don't even know they need the help because there are not people out there to help them understand, recognize, and then seek treatment and services. Because there's billions of dollars being withheld in the federal government across the country, and there's a select billions of dollars being kept from public school systems, nonviolence reduction workers, people dealing with mental health, and those dealing with substance abuse and misuse, those dealing with the various components of court services that go along with those particular grants because we're in a Democratic state, county, and city. We're being further penalized by our federal government leadership. Now, in all honesty, we're being penalized for a lot of success. The worst success we're being penalized for is we stopped Donald Trump. Well, not we. They stopped. I wasn't out there that day. Donald Trump, in his first term, from attending a rally at the University of Illinois Forum, which is about a mile or so from where we're currently located, a mile and a half down the road, almost directly down the road. And they had barricaded, boycotted all the exit ramps coming off the expressway to the U of I. And at one point, they were considering walking, but they didn't. They decided to just abandon showing up. And they had infiltrated the meeting and had started to have active protests in the actual forum itself. Democratic people that was against his candidacy, against him as a person for various crimes that he had been accused of. So that has further heightened what many believe is a revenge tour through government to keep funding out of Chicago, keep funding out of Cook County, and keep funding out of the state of Illinois. And why so seriously? One, because we're Democratic on all levels. Democrats control the state Senate, the state House of Representatives, Cook County government. And even though City of Chicago is nonpartisan, meaning they do not run based on parties, but Democratic affiliated representatives have the vast majority of the city seats, whether they progressive, whether they moderate, whether they conservative. So because of that, there's a blockade on government funding. Thankfully, we have a court system. Some of it is just flat out illegal, and some of that will start to be released this year. But once it's released, it takes 3 to 4 months to apply for different services, another 3-4 months to try to select groups, another few months for it to be allocated and actually given to them groups to do the work. So some of that work is going to be ineffective over a year behind. And it's going to create gaps in. And so like right now, they say in the city of Chicago, violence about a week ago on a Sunday was the most murders in a January since 1991. And throughout 2025, the murder rate had been going down almost every month. And the overall murder rate in some areas was down 20%, in some poor, very disadvantaged communities with high murder rates was down 20%, some 16, some 10, 9, 8. So some of the worst communities were really doing well. But all of a sudden, 2026 stuff going up, even though we have all those ICE workers that's supposed to help us with violence and get rid of all the other criminals, whether they legal or illegal, because I mean, it's supposed to be illegal, but in actuality, they even ready to chuck out the legal criminals who've been citizens for life. They even trying to change some legislations. So the reality is, all of this is contributing to the substance abuse problem and the criminality of substance abuse. Because when good people lose good jobs, sometimes the only way to survive becomes to go to the illegal lifestyles. Start having a lot of card games and things of that nature to make ends meet, what they used to call house parties in the 60s and 70s. And that means that there's going to be more elements of drugs and alcohol flowing. And when people get mad when they losing money at them houses, it ain't like the casino where you got 100 security guards all around the place. You don't have but 1 or 2 people might be acting as security, if that. Sometimes everybody's going on the trust of the people they know, this family and friends. But money, alcohol, and drugs make for bad company, especially for a loser who's losing big, that really is desperate to win. Therefore, more violence. Then you get the whole problem is that I can't treat people, we can't service people if we don't have the funding in these various organizations. And you even had the big organizations trying to stop funding small organizations so they can get more of the pie from the state, the county, and the city because they losing the federal funding, which is totally ridiculous. Because in all honesty, some of what the smaller groups do, going door to door, talking to their neighbors, block to block, the major groups aren't going to do it. A lot of them have contracts to do it, but let's be honest, they don't. You know, they the greatest paper pushers in America. They not the greatest service providers. And I know because since 1990, I've been able to provide a level of service equal to all the multi-million-dollar agencies across Illinois. And I've done it with or without funding. I've helped just as many people recover. My 1 in 16 cover and stay long-term in recovery. My 2 or 3 in 16 periodic recovery from substance abuse, and the others come back to recovery at various stages like every other group. You know, since 1935, the development of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and all other substance abuse and alcoholic treatments across the country and ended up leading to major treatment changes across the world. So we have that kind of relationship. At Hand Up Recovery Homes, if you try us, we get you results as well as the multi-million-dollar agencies. However, since we don't have funding, then there's this thing called sliding scales. But you can call us 773-213-0802. You can email us at WECOOK3289 which is on your screen every week. And that is WeCook3289 and we'll try to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, usually within 24 hours. The reality is that we're starting to see the effects, and no one's going to want to acknowledge it too quickly, of those funding sources being missing. If the additional funding for violence reduction, for substance abuse treatment, for mental health treatment, assessment and treatment, the helping provide hundreds and thousands of jobs across the city of Chicago and Cook County, when those jobs are not available, violence reduction, a lot of former gang members, if they lose their $25,000, $30,000, $60,000 job, what other skill set they have when their first 20 years from 15 to 35 was in and out of the penitentiary and or juvenile justice system. Now they're doing violence reduction, turn their life around. The funding is no longer there for some of those programs. What other vehicles they have for making money? Many security companies will not hire people with those backgrounds. Many other companies don't. There are 30 companies now that 20 years ago didn't hire them. However, are those jobs available currently to handle hundreds and thousands of city workers who are not able to work now because of loss of funding? I'm fortunate enough and unfortunate enough to know that if the city of Chicago get the statistics and they behavioral health department, they've given up anywhere from 500 to 1,000 jobs. They have had to give people pink slips or tell them they'll contact them, don't contact us, because the funding not there. And they cannot consider bringing them back to work until funding from the federal government is restored. So it's real important that groups like ours who don't have to have funding, we're going to have recovery meetings over at a Hand Up, whether it's funding or not. I'm going to try to get you wherever there is funding. And if there's not funding, I'm going to try to get you to organizations that still have people that willing to help you. And I know the people who never had funding, unfortunately a handful of them, they still will help you any way they can with certain things. Then there's the gap. Me and no one else, no matter how great our heart for helping people recover, can help avoid all of the service cuts and the lack of opportunity for people who are poor. that's when we're going to have to decide we will use a spiritual method, period. Go to these recovery meetings. Don't pick up a drink, don't pick up a drug, don't pick up the phone for people who are using. Family, friends, no. If they're using, you do not need to talk to them. What they call changing people, places, and things. You need to go to recovery meetings. You need to Zoom recovery meetings. You need to go to what we call hybrids. Some that are in person if you're able to make it or willing to get out the house and get there, and or Zoom. You need to, those meetings are all over Google. Those meetings from other members are available. Many treatment facilities and other recovery programs have the information. You need to try to get that information. So when there's service gaps, you can get the help. And then when you have the regular Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous for most primary addictions, we go to those 3 basic meetings. We either go to one group that we prefer or we go to all 3 periodically. And we primarily go to one that we prefer, whether it's CA, NA, or AA. And the reality is there are also other meetings. If you're dealing with sexual addiction, there's meetings. If you're GA, Gamblers Anonymous, there's meetings for you. If you're dealing with emotions you can't control, there's Emotional Anonymous. So for almost every ailment a person has when they're trying to change their life, if funding's not available at a nonprofit agency or a profitable agency, there are recovery-based meetings all over the internet now. Thank God for the internet in this instance. It is good information and resources available for you to get help. Now, most people won't tell you that because they're on the money-making side of this. I'm not. I'm on the save lives side. Always have been. I've lost thousands of dollars last year, tens of thousands in the past. I could have made that money if I was willing to just stockpile people just to get paid. Never gonna stockpile people just to get paid. I'm never gonna have people all over my floors in my buildings just to make a couple dollars. I'm always going to try to get them ample space, ample privacy. Even though it's cooperative living, you try to get them enough space to have some privacy. Try to encourage them to become independent in their recovery as well as in their quality of living, their life, rebuild their life. Either go get trades, go back and get an associate degree, go get a skill in woodwork or upholstery, go get skills that's going to allow you to be employed, whether a person, an agency, person, organization employ you or not. Get those skills. We stopped getting that, a lot of us with academic degrees. I don't have those skills with academic degrees, but I've always seen the need for them because I knew how much I value wood shop. I was one of the first people 30 years ago when they started cutting out wood shop and auto shop in what they call middle schools. Then 10 years later, they had minimized the number of those programs in high schools. And then 10 years after that, they started cutting all of them out in minority communities. Then they cut out music programs, band programs. So it's no wonder the streets of Chicago and many urban areas are in the state of affairs they are. We have to continue to work to help people recover from substance abuse. But not only substance abuse, with the proliferation of legal gambling and the revenue being generated by states, counties, and cities now, and these little towns and villages, gambling addiction is skyrocketing. And the problem with gambling is, like alcohol, you can find it on almost every other corner. In cities and urban areas, you can find drugs like that too, some suburbs, but The drugs, other than the city most of the time, they can't stand out saying, we got this, that, the other. But every gambling hole along Roosevelt Road and all those towns going west of Chicago have neon flashing lights. Boom, boom, boom. Can't miss them. Just like the casino machines have all them lights and all the nice chandeliers and the good food. They got a few drinks and sandwiches and everything, or they next door got the sandwich shop that they working with to help make sure you can run over and get something to eat, or sometimes they delivery come right around the bend into the little gambling hall or shop. So, and they popping up everywhere, strip malls, everywhere they legally can, they popping up. As well as all the lottery machines in the city and all the suburbs, various places. So gambling addiction is going wild. We don't like talk about it because it's legal. We don't like talk about it because so many people, including our government, make plenty money off of it. But it's a serious problem for struggling families. It's a serious problem for middle-class family. Serious problem for many upper-class families. Not so serious for filthy rich people, but marginally rich people can go broke gambling. Filthy rich people may not go broke, but they'll have financial hardships down the road. And most of all, they may end up leaning more into alcoholism and drugs because of the depression that comes from losing so much money, that many of them may end up dead because they got money. Because that's the only worst part of being rich. With addiction, you can end up dying from your addiction, especially if it's substance abuse or alcohol, because the money won't run out when you're filthy rich. You can live off of your residuals from investments for the rest of your life, and your kids can live off it, and ex-wives and everybody else when you got hundreds of millions of dollars and or you're worth billions of dollars. So that's the danger there. But in our communities, we need to continue to provide services. We need to keep to fighting to provide more services. And that's those of us who will do it for free. Us good spiritual people. Us people who are not in these, didn't create our agencies to just get filthy rich. We created them to help save lives, change lives, to save families that are going to be destroyed by alcoholism, substance abuse, be destroyed by gambling, be destroyed by marijuana addiction they not talking about. And the marijuana now is causing more mental health problems because some potency is almost 100% THC. Read that last week in the paper. It's legal now. We're not talking about how addictive marijuana can be. What issues it can create for people and families when they spending so much money at the dispensary versus taking care of basic needs at home with their children. You know, the groceries, putting them in a better school, giving them, making sure they can go on trips, making sure if they need subsequent services that are not available, counseling, tutoring, that their kids get that. So all this can exacerbate an already bad problem in the city when it comes to violence, when it comes to murders, when it comes to mental health problems. And even though the city's trying to improve that, with the pullout of federal funding, it gets hard. So everyone who has all the dollars, the big dollars, you all need to hit the streets more, really trying to help people. You all need to bring in people that want to really do the outreach work, not bring in family, friends, and other folk you know. Patronage of any kind, whether it's a nonprofit, government, or big business, oftentimes means there's a gap of what services should be provided to the people that need it, especially poor people. We need all hands on deck. So all y'all that got rich, y'all need to take time out to give back to those that you got rich off of. You know, those trying to get rich, you need to give back right now. You can't wait for the federal grants to help people. Those who are broke, I suggest you get to every free program you can to help you get on your feet. And those who are tempted to go illegal, realize the dangers of destroying your life and potentially your family's life going forward forever. This storm in government will pass. Right now, here and there. There's grants being opened back up because the federal government say you cannot freeze money that the previous Congress, you didn't have no jurisdiction to kill those grant opportunities or to hold them indefinitely. So some are being released. Services are coming. We just got to be patient. We got to be spiritual. You don't have to necessarily be religious, but if you are religious, lean on that. Whether it's Christianity, whether it's Muslim faith, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses, any faith, lean on it. It can save your life. It can save the lives of people in your families. It can help you get over troubled water, troubled time. And we thank you for a wonderful show. I hope you all have gotten a lot of it. Let's press all the legislators to get all the people that do true outreach still and willing to do the real outreach, the funding they need out of state government, out of county government, and city that have their own pools of money from our tax dollars. So let's understand they do have it. And all of them have a reserve fund. The city of Chicago is probably pretty low. Some suburban towns, especially south suburb and some west suburbs, they depleted because of all the other bills trying to run their government. And some of their legislators have ripped them off pretty bad at certain points. But the rest of these governments have more reserves to put out here to help the community. But let's get stuff in grassroots people hands that's willing to work with the people. And we thank you for your time. Hand up, we cook 3289@yahoo.com, or you can hit us up at wcook7123@gmail.com. And you can also call 773-213-0802. Thank you for a wonderful night. And take care, be blessed, and keep hope alive.